Like a trusted turnout jacket you've had for years, Flex 7 outer shell fabric delivers a perfectly broken-in feel on the very first wear. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of Enforce technology, Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tenkatafabrics.com/flex7. Flex 7, powered by Enforce technology, only from Tenkata Protective Fabrics.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit magnagrip.com.
Oh, good evening, everybody. Hey, Tom, how you doing? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring that good-looking guy in right under us there with the green shirt in about 2 minutes. But this is Ronnie K in New York. And Tommy, what's going on there, my friend, in New Mexico?
Oh, it has been hot, and we finally got a little break in the weather today. Had a thunderstorm roll through and drop the temperature down a little bit. But wildland season is here, and things are picking up. My daughter is out on a wildland assignment as we speak. And that's about it, Ron. Things have been going pretty smooth and quiet.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the wildland guys, I always got a kick out of was because they set the little backfires and stuff, with the oil can with the flames coming out of it. So it's like they light them and they fight them. It's like, wow, this is good work. You're making your work for yourself. It's great. So, yeah, I think half the country's expecting thunderstorms. We're expecting them here in New York tonight also. So there's some crazy front. I guess a piece of that storm down in Florida, I guess, might make it up here eventually. But they're getting pounded down there. I heard this morning one of the counties or one of the cities, town, or whatever it was, they got 20 inches of rain. It was falling 4 inches an hour. There isn't a sewer system in the world that can handle that, man. Not ever. Not ever. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have a special guest, an old friend of the family here, and Tommy and Mike go way back. So I'm going to turn it over to Tommy to introduce our guest. Tom,
it is an honor to call our guest a friend of mine, and I distinctly remember the night we discovered we were New Jersey Americans, and we were in Colorado at the time. But Mike started his career in Long Beach, New Jersey, also in Long Branch, New Jersey. And in 1988, he made the move close to what I had done back in 1980 and moved west and to, I'm going to say, greener pastures than New Jersey. But Mike came out, went to work for Eagle River Fire Department, eventually switched over to South Metro Fire Rescue in the Denver metro area, has gone on to Front Range Fire and Rescue in Colorado as the chief of department. Mike, you are one of my favorite people in the world. If you have never seen Mike West speak, I highly recommend it. He is probably one of the top 3 instructors that I have ever seen in my entire life. And I've tried to emulate and steal stuff from him for the entire time we've known each other. Mike, it's good to have you on the Backstep.
It's really good to be here. Thank you. I obviously I'll send the check here shortly for that great intro. I appreciate that, Tommy. I remember that night as well, and one of my mentors, I think, made that introduction to us, George Goldbach. God rest his soul. He was a great leader. Probably back in the day when you got it on FDNY, Ronnie, he was one of the instructors at the Rock at one point, and just an all-around great guy. So he made that introduction. I remember it vividly.
Cool. Yeah. So how long ago was that? When did you guys meet up?
I would guess that would be around 2000.
I'm going to say probably like 98, maybe.
It may have been. Yeah.
So that's 20. There's 25 years. Shot to hell.
He still talks to me.
And he still talks to you. Go figure. So we're glad that Mike, you were up on the step with us probably 6 or 8 months ago. We talked. You had initiated a program at Front Range with transcendental meditation, all that other stuff. How's that? Just as off the top, how's that going?
It's going fantastic. We're now at the point, we've actually got another session coming up here in July. Another group of our firefighters are going to be instructed by instructors from the David Lynch Foundation. They're based out of New York City. They fly out here. They do a 5-day class, or 4-day class rather. We've been putting some of our recruits before they go to the academy in the program, so that they're starting out their career learning, just getting another tool in the toolbox to kind of reduce some stress and anxiety and I think we all suffer from sleep deprivation in some manner, and it definitely helps that in a big way.
Cool. So before we get to the meat of the show, I got one other thing I'm going to ask you, Mike. You had posted something recently. It was just the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. And there was a big celebration and a big memorial and all the stuff that goes with it. And you posted something on social media that said you were at the 75th anniversary 5 years ago. You got to give us a minute or three of what that was like being in Normandy for that. You got to kind of just.
I wish you had warned me that one was coming. I'll do my best not to cry and sob as I'm telling you the stories. It was an incredible experience. We were very lucky. Just a real quick story. The folks from Nassau County Pipes and Drums, I had tagged along with them in 2018 to go to the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. And as we were leaving from some of the events there, Memorial Day, some of our hosts asked if anyone would come back for the 75th of D-Day. And Nassau, those guys had spent a lot of money and time, and they weren't up for it. And they asked me, they said, what about the Colorado band? Would they come? And I said, I'll go ask. And we ended up bringing about 30 pipers and drummers. Wow. We had a few folks from around the country that joined our band over there. We did Normandy Beach on D-Day. We did St. Mark-Lise, which is where the 101st, parachuted in the 82nd. We did Bastogne, where Easy Company was dug in the foxholes. We literally gathered around some of the foxholes and played Amazing Grace.
Wow.
It was incredible. And probably the most touching part, and I put it up there on the social media that you're talking about, on the way back from Point to Hock, which is where the Army Rangers had scaled that cliff, about 100-foot cliff. We had just played a ceremony there. And on the way back to the bus, a gentleman came up to me and he said, oh, you guys are done. We could hear you from the parking lot, but we couldn't make it here quick enough. He said, my grandfather was on the second wave on D-Day. And he said, he just loves the bagpipes. Is there any way you guys could play a couple tunes for him? Of course we did. Of course we did. And it was just so powerful of a moment. And to see, and we had a couple of those experiences, but that was the one that by far stuck out to me.
Yeah, Mike, we listen. We make fun of the pipe bands. Everybody does. We call them. I had a buddy call you guys men in skirts and all that kind of stuff. But I tell you, when you tell, I mean, other than the honor that you bestow upon fallen firefighters at their funerals and all that, but this is really next level stuff. This is amazing stuff, and I can't imagine. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. That and thank you and your guys for going, because you took the whole fire service with you. You 30 guys represented 1 million of us here in America, and great job on that, man. I can't imagine what that was like, standing there and going to those places and seeing all of that. Were you at the cemetery as well, the Normandy Cemetery?
Yeah, we played there on the 7th. We had a big concert as part of NYPD. It was us, NYPD, a young band out of Virginia, a youth band, and it was just spectacular.
Wow, just really good stuff. Really good stuff. So I'm going to flip it back to Tommy. If you want to get the ball rolling on welcome to Grill Night here at the Mike West.
Rapid fire.
The amazing thing about technology is obviously we're recording the show now instead of doing it live, but we'll air on the 17th of June, and that is the first Monday of the Safety Stand Down Week. And it's something I wanted to kind of discuss a little bit. For those who don't know, the Safety Stand Down is a joint initiative between the International Association of Fire Chiefs, their Health and Survival section, the National Volunteer Fire Council, the National Fire Protection Association, the Fire Department Safety Officers Association, and the International Association of Firefighters. It runs June 16th through the 22nd, and the theme of this year's stand down is Back to Basics, which is very near and dear to my heart. But I got to give a plug to the NFPA. They're the sponsor of the Fire Service Safety Stand Down Quiz, which you can take online. If you take the quiz, 200 randomly selected participants are going to get a challenge coin for the Safety Stand Down Week. So that is www.safetystandown.org. And Mike, I wanted to kind of hit you up a little bit. What are you guys at Front Range doing for the stand down?
Thank goodness that was the question, Tommy, because I thought you were going to start giving me the 200 question quiz. I was getting a little nervous here. Well, just like you, the back to basics thing, I think is such an important topic, and that's what we're focusing, not just this week, but really all year at Front Range. I certainly have been a tech rescue guy and done technical diving, which is a little bit more technical here in Colorado, as you guys probably know. And those are, exciting parts of the job, but I don't think we spend nearly enough time in most departments just talking about the basics of fireground operations, throwing ladders, pulling hose lines. One of the things that we've really spent a lot of time on lately is making sure that our skills at pulling those longer lines, we call them horizontal standpipes, but those longer lines for those unusual stretches are squared away. And that may not sound like a safety issue. It might sound like a tactical issue, but as far as I'm concerned, getting pinned down in a hot hallway, that's a mess. So we're spending a lot of time on that right now.
Even getting to the rear of a supermarket.
Oh,
you think about it, you go into the rear of a supermarket, you're stretching 300, 400 feet. You're right, because we kind of what's happened, I think, Mike, is that we tend to veer off with, I guess it's mission creep, because we start worrying and we got to worry about everything, but we start getting, it becomes the theme of the month. There's a tank truck crash. Hey, we haven't done foam. Let's do foam. And there's a hazmat, and there's a lithium ion battery fire, and then blah, 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 blah. So, but this happened years ago, I remember, and we were talking about this stuff, and I was at a Chiefs meeting in New Jersey, and this came up, and one guy said, we had a house fire the other day, and the guys couldn't get the line to the door. He goes, they didn't forget how to do it, but like they were tripping over themselves, and they were like, it wasn't muscle memory, it wasn't automatic. They weren't doing the sets and reps that we talk about today. He said, just get in the line. It happened to me when I was the chief at Merck. We had a fire in our high rise in the top floor machine room, and before the fire went great. 3 weeks before the fire, we did a drill. And my guys were running around doing everything but getting a line into the Siamese connection to feed the standpipe and sprinkler system, and then taking the roll-ups up the stairs and getting them laid out. It was like it took long. And I said, what's going on? Well, we were doing this and doing that. It's that old, that not the old joke, it's the new joke. We had to get our vests on first and said command on the back kind of thing. Everybody's gotten distracted with so much stuff coming down the pike. And there's more. there's more coming. We might not know what that is until it happens. But this back to basics thing, it's getting the line stretched, getting the ladder up to the second floor, all that kind of stuff. It's you're right. I like what you said that it's always safety week at Front Range. I said that for 30 years as a chief. It's safety week every week. We're not just pausing 1 week a year, and I stayed after my guys. I really did.
Yeah.
There's I'm sorry, Mike.
No, that's okay.
There's a couple guys I really need to give kudos to for the safety stand down concept. And one guy was pretty instrumental in getting that started, and that was Gary Brees. Gary was the executive director of the International Association of Fire Chiefs from 85 to 2007. And he's the guy that kind of tuned me into where a lot of that stuff originated from. And the stand down concept comes from a couple different areas, but the big one is the aviation industry. And if you look at some of the early stuff that was out there when they were doing the stand downs, a lot of that was driven by what the aviation and military was doing in that. And I was looking for some stuff online. I guess it was about 2 years ago. The Marine Corps decided they needed to do a stand down. They were having some aviation incidents, and they went back, and the big thing they wanted to do was reinforce proper procedures, provide information on what the incidents were, and then gather feedback through the process. And I think that really kind of sums up of what we're looking to do with the safety stand down. The other thing is the tie into crew resource management. And there's a book out there. I didn't bring my copy with me today.
You got a call? You going on a call?
Gotta go. No. But there was a book called Crew Resource Management Principles and Practices. Jeff Dyer, who used to work at the National Fire Academy, Bruce Evans, who's the current fire chief in Bayfield, Colorado, and Paul Lesage put that thing together. And it really kind of tied everything back in together when we first started looking at some of the stand-down concepts and the way to prevent incidents from occurring that are going to get our people hurt.
So, it's an interesting thing that just kind of popped into my mind, Tommy, when you said that, as far as crew resource management and one of the tools that we do teach some of our folks at Front Range, and we taught them at South Metro as well. And it goes back to when I was the training chief at South Metro, we would have annual meetings with our rock stars that were company officers, our rock stars that were battalion chiefs, rock stars that were firefighters, et cetera. And just to frame what we were going to do next year in training. And I had a group of engineers, driver operators sitting there. And, I bought them lunch, paid them overtime, et cetera. And we're just doing a little round table. And I asked the very first engineer, I said, so what do we need to teach you? What are the skills that you don't feel like you have? And I recognize that we're a PG program now. So I'll do my best to make this PG. But he said, I need to be able to tell my officer that he is a
knucklehead.
Knucklehead times 10, yeah. And I laughed, and everyone in the room laughed. And I said, okay, you're serious? What is that about? He says, well, the other night we go to a fire. He says, you were at the fire, and I remember the fire, second alarm fire, defensive operations. And he goes, and you've been telling us that when we're a second alarm engine, we should be thinking about actually pumping the hydrant and pumping back to the master streams, so we get a little bit more short relays, putting the engine directly on the plug. And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, the officer fought me on that in the front seat. And I said, oh, okay, well, let me think about that. And I said to the next guy, I said, what do you need? He goes, I need the same thing he needs. And so suddenly we became aware that an engineer, a firefighter, someone who's a little bit lower in ranks or maybe less in seniority, et cetera, they didn't feel empowered to tell the officer, the battalion chief, or the incident commander when there was something wrong, whether it was safety or tactical or there was a better way to do it. So one of the things that we did, and we teach it now in our safety officer class as well, is we teach the SBAR acronym, SBAR. And it's a quick way of framing your concern. There's a situation. Here's the background. Here's my assessment. Here's my recommendation. And if you do that, and it's comes from the medical profession, they teach nurses how to do that. You know, you're a doctor, you probably got a big ego. You went through a lot of school, you're a smart person. And so if you can give this skill to a brand new firefighter so that they can explain their concern to an instant commander or chief or whatever, and it has worked magic in a lot of situations. So just figured I'd throw that one out there.
I like it. Great. I'm gonna jump in with another question, Mike. Being that you're the only active chief at the moment on the screen, okay? You're the only active boss going to fires at the moment. Basically, what do you think's truly changed within the mindset of the new men and women coming into the fire service today? I know you do your recruiting and you have maybe a probie class. I don't know if you do your own or it's a regional academy or whatever it is. So what's really changed, with today's young firefighters that are coming on the job now?
That's a loaded question, and I'm going to say this, that I recognize I'm in a very unique place. I have a lot of friends that are active chiefs that are constantly talking about the new generation and some of the problems that they're having in recruiting. I am blessed. I am getting rock stars that are coming through the door every single day. In fact, I frequently say I'm glad I'm not trying to get a job because there's no way I would be successful against these kids. They're smart, they're motivated, they're eager to learn, they're respectful, and I'm just really lucky to do that. I will say that a lot of it, I think, comes down to expectations. We have a document that the members wrote about 4 years ago, which we refer to as the Front Range Way, which we stole from Alan Brunacini, the Phoenix Way, and other places have it as well. But that document is the basis of our interview process. And we tell people up front, the answers to the test are in this book. If you learn this book, if you tell me how you live this, you got a better shot of getting hired. And what we get is we get motivated professionals. We just hired a kid that's, he might be 19. I think he's 18, but he's 19 years old. The most respectful, motivated kid that I think I've ever met. Just a fantastic, salt of the earth kind of guy. Just like all the guys that we came into fire service with years and years and years ago. I do hear some of those complaints. Well, the younger generation, they're not working with their hands. We got to teach them how to start saws, and we have to do, they don't even know how to mow the lawn. And I was having a conversation with John Salka probably about 15 years ago. And he says, Mike, I hear that all the time. He goes, half or more of the recruits that we, the probies that we get in New York City, they never mowed a lawn either. They live in New York City. They don't have grass.
They live in Manhattan. Yeah.
they live in Manhattan. They've been taking mass transit. They don't have a car, So it's okay. We'll just teach them that skill because they're smart enough to learn it.
Yeah. One of my stories that we talk about stuff that, some of the kids never did things mechanically. When I was the chief in Wilton, Connecticut, before I went back to the city, I hired four new firefighters. 2 were volunteers, 2 were career guys from other departments that did a lateral come over. The 2 volunteers, 2 nice, smart, heads-up kids. One of them grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. Came from a really, really upscale. The town Wilton was an upscale town. The town next door where he came from was orders of magnitude above that. Our average house was about 5,000 square feet. Their average house was 10,000 square feet in that town. So a lot of money, big money. So kid comes on the job. He went to college. He had college behind him. He had, all that kind of stuff. And he was trainable and he was a volley for a long time. And he was in his mid to late 20s, mid 20s. So he's doing it about 6 years. And they all went through the state academy in Connecticut. The the state academy runs the career service Proby school, except for large cities like Bridgeport. I think Bridgeport does their own academy. New Haven runs their own, and maybe Hartford. Everybody else goes to the state. They went through that already. You can actually spend your own money and spend your own dime and go to Proby school on your own. So you're more hireable and you're more palatable to a department that's looking to hire laterally. Okay, so he went through all of that. So now they're in the firehouse for 4 or 5 weeks for orientation. They're on days, a night here and there, but basically days, and they're learning the rigs, they're learning where everything is, all that stuff. And Fridays are shift. Whoever happened to be working on Friday, every Friday, they cleaned all the staff cars, chief's car, deputy's car, fire marshal, deputy fire marshal, everything that wasn't an apparatus. I come out lunchtime, and I'm going to get a sandwich at the deli, and I look at my wagon, and I said, I guess they didn't get to me yet. Okay, it's still Friday. It's 12 o'clock. And I go get my sandwich and come back, and the captain's walking by my office. I said, hey, Cap. I said, you guys busy this morning? You didn't get to the cars? He says, no, we did everything. We're finished. I said, go look at my car and come back. He came and he said to me, we did your car. I said, yeah. I says, it looks dirtier than when I came in this morning. I said, who washed the car? And new guy. I said, I'll bet you $20 that kid never washed a car in his life. He grew up with a silver spoon, graduated high school, got a Mercedes in his senior year as a high school gift, and drove through the car wash and gave him a $30 bill every Friday to clean his car so he can go out with a girl on Friday night and Saturday night. So sure enough, he went back and asked him. He said, did you ever wash a car before? He said, nope. Something simple like washing a car. And I washed my father's, my grandfather's thousands of times and all that stuff. Kid never washed a car before. So they went out and physically showed him, start here, wet it down, top down, you get the hose, wipe it, So those are the things. He wasn't a stupid kid. Smart as a whip. Smart as a whip. When it came to the fire stuff, he kind of knew what was going on. But there's that little thing with the lack of mechanical practice or ability or whatever. Now, it turns out his dad was a medical professional, as his mother was. So his dad never fixed anything either. Dad never showed him, how to change an outlet or put up a fixture in the house. So my father showed me all that stuff. So I was lucky. But that's kind of what we're running into more and more. And yes, the kids in New York City, they don't mow grass. There is no grass. A tree grew in Brooklyn. That was it.
What?
So, yeah, one. So they come in and they're as green and fresh as they could be. Then it's the job. It's the job of the job to show them how to do it. Hopefully, they're trainable, teachable, and they can learn those skills. So we'll talk more about the new kids. Tommy, you got something? Yeah,
one of the things I have really loved about my career is having to go, the ability to go throughout the country, teaching National Fire Academy stuff and looking at other people's operations and stealing the good stuff. And I know Mike's former department, South Metro, I always thought they were kind of above and beyond with safety officer stuff. When Mike was the training chief, the training officers would respond and become safety officers. Mike, who's doing the safety officer stuff for you guys now up at Front Range?
So now it's we're automatically getting the 2nd Battalion on every call. And depending on, we run a lot of automatic aid. We're a smaller department, mostly surrounded by smaller departments. So generally speaking, with the automatic aid department, you're usually getting a 3rd battalion chief. And so what we teach as a matter of practice is the incident commander, the first arriving battalion chief, has some choices that they can make with the next arriving chiefs. So safety obviously is one possible choice. Look at that. Support officer as one. So whether we call that an aide or a fit or a scribe, that's a choice. Division or group supervisor is a choice, etc. So what we tell our folks is to look at the incident at the time that next arriving battalion gets there and determine where you're going to make the biggest impact on the scene. Sometimes that's safety. Sometimes that's fixing a division that is going awry. You get a lot of companies working up there, and they just need a little herding of the cats. Sometimes it is to organize that command board because you're starting to lose some accountability. So we give that option to the incident commander, who eventually becomes that safety. Could be second, third, or even later. And all of them, Tommy, received that safety officer training programs. 3-day class that we've developed here based on the Colorado curriculum.
Is that a spinoff? Is that a spinoff of the NFA, Mike?
Yeah, it's a spinoff of FDSOA as well as NFA. So we kind of took the best of, if you will. It's the best of album, along with some lessons that we learned from the South Metro program, and we had some really big successes when I was down there.
Gotcha.
That kind of comes to mind with safety officer development is, what are you going to do to get them kind of pushed in the right direction? And I have to give the plug. If you're going to take a global approach to looking at what the safety guys should be doing, highly recommend this textbook, even though the guy that wrote it's a little questionable. But that takes kind of the 10,000-foot view at that. The other one that comes along, if I get the cover right, is Dave Dotson's book. This is a little more position specific as to what skill level the incident safety officer has. And of course, you had just mentioned, Mike, so I don't have to ask the question again of what you guys are doing to make sure that those people who fill the position are ready to fill the position.
It's crucial. It shouldn't be just the fifth arriving lieutenant who's acting in a role today, et cetera. Dave Dotson had a lot of impact in this area.
Right.
When he wrote that book, he was a company officer in the neighboring district where I'm sitting right this very second. So a lot of his safety officer stuff still lives up here.
Yeah, Mike. I'm sorry, Tom. Mike, if you guys don't have that fire officer's guide for a desk reference, because that's really what it is. It's a desk reference. Let me know. I'll be glad to send you one for the department.
I would absolutely love that. Thank you, Ronnie.
All right, you got it. Go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
And I was looking at your book, Ron, just the other day, and in the foreword you mentioned one of the quotes I use a lot that Dave Dotson came up with of being intellectually aggressive as compared to arbitrarily aggressive. And I think that kind of comes back down to what we were talking about earlier with the theme of the stand down, like getting back to basics and making sure we know what to do. And that's going to lead into another question, Mike, on what you guys are doing. Obviously, the basic training for any incident safety officer is going to involve structural. But how do you get ready for a guy that needs to be the safety officer at a wildland incident, hazmat, or tech rescue? Where do you find the balance in putting some of that together?
It's a great question, and it's one that we talk about frequently. It comes down to how we do it, at least, and I think it works well, is to have that on-scene subject matter expert involved in that safety analysis. So if you've got someone, let's stick with wildland for a couple seconds. If you have members on scene that are certified NWS engine bosses or strike team leaders, they have a higher level of training. They're in a good position. They've got a lot of experience. They understand fire weather. They understand, reading the fuels and the topography. They really know what's going on. And so you may have a safety officer who is a battalion chief, and you pair him up with him or her up with that subject matter expert, and they work as a team. As an example of that, I was deployed as a strike team leader down to the Waldo Canyon fire about 15 years ago down in Colorado Springs. Burned about I don't know if it was 400. I think it was 400 homes in one couple hour period. It was horrific. And, I'm pretty good at managing large bodies of resources, but I'm not a super duper wildland guy. So I grabbed hold of a captain who was a strike team leader, had a tremendous amount of wildland experience, and we worked together. It was a tag team effort.
Cool. Get it. Okay, let me see what I got for you now. All right, so when we're talking about training new people, and we said they're smart and they're trainable. Okay, what are you doing today? What are we doing today with our young people that we didn't do 30 and 40 years ago? Like what's changed? What does the classroom look like? What does the fire grounds look like? The training grounds that's different than it was 20, 30, and 40 years ago.
Well, one thing that I'd say a little bit of an attitude change for us, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this. I can remember vividly when I got hired at South Metro, one of the training officers yelling at me for what I believe to be an arbitrary offense. And it, to this day, I still don't know why I got in trouble for this silly thing. He just yelled at me and said, "You just did that." And I went, "Yes." "What are you doing that for?" "Why shouldn't I?" And I never got an answer, but before I knew it, I was on my face doing push-ups. And and then I stood up and he goes, "Do you get it now?" And I was like, "No, I just did push-ups." And that's one of the things that I think has changed dramatically is how we treat our recruits. We tell our recruits on day one that what we want you to do is we want you to have a long, happy, healthy career, and then a long, happy, and healthy retirement. And the only way you do that is through taking care of yourself, working out, eating well, taking care of your mental health. Why, on God's green earth, would I punish you with fitness? Why would I make you do push-ups as punishment? Because now what I've told you is working out is punishment. Now I've turned, by the time you get to the firehouse, yeah, screw that. I'm not going to, I don't know if I can say, I can say that one probably. Screw that. I'm not going to do any push-ups ever again, because I got yelled at, and so that's the biggest thing I think that has really changed in our environment is there's no screaming and yelling. Is there some stern talks, once in a while if someone makes a safety violation? Yeah, don't do that. I don't want you to get hurt. I love you, and I don't want you to get hurt. That's how we treat this whole thing. There is some tough love, but it's not the screaming and yelling that went on when we were kids.
Yeah, what we're seeing now at the Rock when they train the Pro B classes is they have drill instructors, they have DIs, and they get the group usually first thing in the morning, and they're working them out. They're doing calisthenics and they're running and they're doing all that, and they're in their face. It's like Marine boot camp. It's parasailing. I never had the pleasure or the honor of being at parasailing, but that's what I've been told. It's our version of parasailing. And then after they do their thing, and then they start doing firematic stuff with the instructors. It's a different atmosphere. So it's a little bit. It's kind of a hybrid of both. And interestingly enough, we lose about 10% of our Pro B classes every class. So we brought 355 kids in for a class a couple of months ago, and they're down to like 305. And so it's interesting. And what I asked, because I asked the questions. I'm so fortunate. I got to tell you, Mike, Chuck Downey, Ray Downey's son, is running the Rock right now. He's the chief of the Fire Academy. Nice. So I get to see Chuck all the time. We have great talks, and so I asked him. I said, "You're not firing that many guys, are you?" You know what? He says, We very rarely do we dismiss anybody. He says they quit. They just quit. He says within the first 2 weeks, he says usually 10 of them. They come in and said, "This is not what I signed up for. This wasn't in the brochure," and that's it. And then over time, they come to their own realization that maybe they're not cut out to be a firefighter, which that's what the academy's for. That's what we want to happen. You want them to be successful, and you promise them that that you're going to help them and get them through the program, but they on their own volition. It's very, very rare that they let a kid go out of probie school over there. They just do it themselves, which is, I think self-discovery is great, and it saves a lot of headaches on our side of the fence too. So we kind of doing a hybrid, and I think you're right. I think that some of that is still called for, and some of it's not called for, and you got to strike a balance. It's about striking a balance.
Absolutely right. What you get from the DIs is, you instill a little bit of respect and understanding of the paramilitary structure that we all work under, right. For sure. I think one other thing that we do with our physical fitness, which is worth mentioning, is that it's what we refer to as programmed. So the firematic instructors are working with the physical instructors, the folks that are doing the calisthenics, the workouts, and they're looking ahead at this week's schedule to make sure that if they've got a heavy burn day, they're going to be doing a lot of live fire. That's a day that maybe they're going to work on some flexibility, and they're going to do some stretching rather than they're going to do a long run, so that we're not ending up, because we have learned the hard way that we're, sometimes we work them out hard at 6 in the morning, and then all of a sudden by 11 o'clock they get an injury. They get a knee, shoulder, back, etc. So we're trying to build in a program that takes into account that not only are you working out in the morning, but you're really working out on the fire ground and making sure that we're not overdoing something related to that.
It's great. It's a great idea. It's a good concept.
Mike, I think back to the first time I heard Gordon Graham speak, and he kind of introduced the risk-benefit matrix out there. Are you guys still using that stuff, and where do you fit it in?
Yeah, you know what? We have that discussion. I'll tell you where I have that discussion more often than anything is when we start talking about disciplinary procedures. Like, it doesn't happen very often where I'm working now. I get a lot of angels. I get a lot of choir boys and girls, that they mind their P's and Q's. They're fantastic. But, Gordon Graham talks a lot about that, high risk, low frequency event. And when he breaks that down, he breaks down that discretionary time, non-discretionary time. And of course, the three of us know that on the fire grounds, that's non-discretionary time. We don't have a lot of time to think about it. So those are the things, those skills that we want to be automatic. We want to have that muscle memory. So we train on those a lot. We talk about the discretionary time, and that sometimes when we get into HR issues, we get into discipline issues, you have to recognize that all HR issues, once the behavior has been stopped, you have discretionary time. And when we react emotionally, rather than phoning a friend, calling HR, calling someone who maybe can talk you off the ledge into making a good decision, we find much better. I had a person I worked with years and years ago that used to say, it's HR, not the ER. We don't need to be rushing into any bad, HR decisions. So that's the place that we really still use Gordon Graham's stuff a lot, is just making sure people understand that it is a high risk, low frequency when we're talking about discipline.
That's an interesting concept with that. One of the things I did enjoy about listening to Gordon kind of put that stuff together over the years is RPDM, the recognition prime decision making. And as I'm sure you remember, Mike and Ron, I don't know whether you're tuned into it or not, but that was really the whole basis of Blue Card. Was you just got hammered with scenarios, and even though we're not going to as many fires as we had years past, there's still a way to get that training in. And I think Klein was the guy that did the original kind of RPDM studies with fire departments.
Source Power is the name of the book. It's on my shelf right here.
Very nice. But he was contracted with the military how the commanders made split-second decisions and had the ability to make the call right. And it was when he looked at, he did the study in the late 70s, I believe, and there was no wars going on. So, where did he go to get something comparable was the fire service. And I think a lot of that still holds true. Even though we might not be doing the number of jobs that we've had in the past, there's still a way to build that, what I used to call a slide tray of stuff to look at and know the basics of, you got a one-room job going in a single-story, single-family dwelling, that chances are a little ventilation and a 1 3/4 line are going to solve your problem.
For the just for a second, for the younger viewers, the slide tray that Tommy's talking about, that's a dinner plate that had pictures loaded on it, and you would project them out there. It's kind of like a computer type of a thing, but really old.
Yeah, and we used to store those in libraries, and those were big buildings with lots of books on the shelf. They were beautiful.
Yeah.
But
I've discovered I really like being a curmudgeon.
The RPDM, when I taught safety operations at the National Fire Academy, RPDM was part of that curriculum. So we looked at that, and we used to play Gordon's videos in that class as well. Some of the videos of him when he did the Matrix and all of that other stuff. And I've had some great conversations with some real seasoned commanders. I'm lifelong friends with Jimmy Murtaugh. He just finished that high-rise book with Jerry Tracy and Jack Murphy. And I had a chat with him about that years ago. And he said to me, because he went to thousands and thousands of fires. He worked in all the 5 boroughs. He retired as an assistant chief. And he said it worked 90%, 95% of the time. He said, but I got to tell you something. He says, I get a call. He was a deputy. He says, we got a windy night. It's windy in New York City. He says, and I got a church fire, and I'm heading that way. He says, it was almost like a second alarm on arrival. He says, when I pulled up, the church is going, and the 2 houses next door are going. I got 3 buildings on fire. He said, and I was already in the job 30 years. I got out of the car, looked at my driver, and said, holy shebang. He says, I took 10 seconds for holy. He says, because that slide wasn't coming up in my head. I hadn't had that before. I hadn't had a 30, 40 mile an hour wind blowing with a church and 2 houses. He said, so it works 90, 95% of the time. Sometimes you get that curveball. The same thing happened to the job, happened in a year and a half ago. We had the crane fire, okay, up on the platform. And then the arm broke off. It came down into the street. I asked all the bosses about it. I said, what was it like? And they said, we pulled up, and none of us had ever seen it before. None of them. And you had the chief of operations, the chief of department responded. You had battalions and deputies who've been around a long time. No one has seen that before. So you get that fire once in a while. It's like, all right, we'll figure this out. Shut the slide tray off because we can't use it today. Shut off the projector.
I was gonna comment too. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the astronaut Mike Mullane. He does an awful lot of talk about normalization. Yeah. Now you're gonna pull one of his books out.
I'm going to the shelf.
Going to the shelf. Normalization of deviance, and that's one of the things with RPDM, as well as cognitive bias that we do have to watch with RPDM, because sometimes we pull up and we're looking at that fire and it looks like that slide that's in our carousel, but there's something different. Yep. There's it's a walkout basement. We had this several years ago. I would imagine some of you guys that are watching this have seen the video. We had a marijuana grow operation in the basement of a house, and led to a very close call where we almost lost a company. And but it looked like every other basement fire. It was a simple one-line fire. It was an absolute cakewalk of a fire. But we got pulled into RPDM because we treated it just like even though we had a little piece of information, we knew it was a grow operation, but we didn't grow operation. I don't know what to do with that. The incident commander just kind of threw that out the window. It's a basement fire. We'll just treat it like a basement fire. And it almost cost us some issues there. So
yeah, you know what, Mike, I met Mike Mullane in 1999.
Nice.
And we became friends, and we kept in touch with each other, and over the years, and we have. So as time went on, he started to talk about the normalization of deviance. It comes from this book.
Yes, exactly.
Diane Vaughan. Yeah, Diane Vaughan. This was one of the most interesting things I've ever read. By the way, Mike, Tommy and I, we're bookworms. When we go on our show, we're showing off. Hey, Tommy, did you read this the other day? Call Amazon, get that one, that kind of stuff. So yeah. We're big on books. We like to pass that on to the audience out there. Whether it's not always a Firematic book. This one is not. This is the challenge and launch decision. So, but that's where that kind of that stuff come from. I remember what's his name talking to Brunacini said. Brunacini was the first one in Phoenix when they lost Brett Tarver in the supermarket to say we treated it like a 2.5-story frame house. They stretched an 1 3/4 line in there instead of a 2.5. He said we didn't treat it like a supermarket. We did what we do every day. We pulled up, we got fire, we got smoke, pulled the line. He was the first one to admit it. They didn't attack it like a commercial fire.
Absolutely.
So sometimes we get trapped in our own head. Now and then we get trapped in our own head. It happens. I did want to ask about you've been to a couple of commands. You've been to you were the chief at was it South Metro and other places. So are you operating the same today as you did before?
At fires or in life or
hold on.
Above?
Brooklyn.
That's my phone. It goes off when there's a fire in the city. I always leave it on so Tommy can hear the first one. Then I shut the phone off. Okay, Tommy, there's a 1075 in Brooklyn. Okay, buddy, you got that in your system? Okay,
got it.
Okay, good. So
we don't get wait a minute. We don't get to listen.
Well, I can put the scanner on for you if you want, but then we'll be sitting and listening to that. It'll just be dead air and you and me and a dispatcher. That's it, So basically, when I say are you operating the same way, have you changed your tactics? Where because the fires, they're not the same fires as our fires, as we know. Interior furnishings, hydrocarbon-rich atmosphere, cyanide gas. I mean, there's a whole. Are you operating, or have you changed what we were doing 10, 20, 30 years ago?
No, we've changed quite a bit. Where I'm at now, they're, I think, in some ways ahead of the curve on some of the changes. Using some of the UL and NIST things that we've all talked about, some of the fire tactics and behavior, understanding ventilation a little bit better. And like you guys, I have cut my share of roofs. And now at a single family dwelling, peaked roof with an attic fire, we're cutting it after the fact. We're holding it in there, and we're putting it out with very little water, and we're making a big difference. So, that's one of the things I guess I would say when I look at the American Fire Service right now. I think we really need to give each other a break. I see an awful lot of what I'll call keyboard warriors on the social media sites, bashing XYZ Fire Department or ABC Fire Department, we have a term out here in Colorado. We call it the elk snout fire department. The generic fire department.
Elk snout, I like it.
Elk snout. But here's the thing: is wherever I go around the country, not on the road as much as I used to be teaching, but I'm still around the country quite a bit. Every fire department in America is doing a good job. They're putting out fires. And if the neighbor's doing a different tactic and their tactic is working and they're doing it safe, effective, efficient, etc., good for them. And if you got a tactic that you like, good for them. But I think as I've gotten a little bit older, mostly because I've learned from being stubborn and this is the only way to do business, is I'm open to some of those talks and suggestions, and then show me the data and let's try it and see if it works in our place, and make sure that we're doing it not just because it's the cool new tactic, but because it's the tactic that's right for us. So yeah, we've changed quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, we've had some pretty big discussions recently, not in the last 2 weeks, but in the last couple of years, about the changing the fire loads, the fire environment, how the fire environment's changed big time. We're living in a hydrocarbon-based society and all that stuff, the plastics and all that. And so, we start talking tactically, and some departments went to 2-inch from 1 3/4, and they get a lot more water out of that 2-inch line, and it's still manageable, to move it. So we're having this discussion recently, and we're talking about that. And the fires are hotter, deadlier, toxic, more toxic, faster, all of that stuff. And then somebody says, well, could the water supply in the town support what you're trying to do? It was like, well, I didn't think of that. It's like, you're talking about you got to deliver a lot more water a lot quicker in larger volumes and higher pressures because of the way the buildings are being built. And of course, we're going to wooden high rises now. Congratulations, and all that stuff. And what about the supply system? What about the water mains? Do they need to be upgraded too in certain cities and towns? And so it's not just a larger hose line. It's not going from 1 3/4 to 2-inch. The 8-inch mains have to be changed out to 10s and 12s and that kind of stuff. So this thing seems to sometimes it grows a little exponential, and we don't expect that. Sometimes we just don't expect it. So, interesting stuff. Tom?
Mike, I know you and I had a while back had kind of a running commentary of trying to define something that still defies definition, and that's command presence. And I know you were doing some work on that. Have you had any revelations on how to identify it and how to pass it along?
Well, back to the RPDM and Blue Card. You mentioned Blue Card earlier. That is one thing that I'm seeing in smaller agencies like mine, where young fire officers who haven't really had a lot of opportunities to talk on a radio as they pull up to a working fire, they get that experience in the sim lab, and now when they pull up on a fire, it sounds to me like they've been to 1,000 fires, like they've been to 5,000 fires. They sound like they're in control. And all of us remember that old axiom of, as the first line goes, so goes the fire. And I add to that and I say, as the first line is ordered, so goes the first line, and so goes the fire. If you're screaming on a radio, it just doesn't come off well. And so I think we're teaching command presence through that communication skill of staying calm, giving that radio report 1,000 times before you actually give it for real. And it works out good. I just actually promoted 2 lieutenants just this week. Actually, technically the end of last week. We did the ceremony this week. And ironically, both of them had fires their first shift. Now, I made sure that they weren't paying someone off or whatever, but sure enough. And one comes in about, I don't know, must have been about 10 o'clock in the evening. And just like Ronnie's pager went off, I flipped over to the channel real quick and I listened to this young lieutenant who's probably 30 years old, been to a handful of fires in his life. And it sounded like he was an old pro, and he did a great job. I went to the fire, patted him on the back. I said, you're doing the right stuff. So I do think that it is a teachable skill. I do have, if I was going to continue working on my PhD, it would be that there is a rate, rhythm, and tone quality of your voice that indicates to others that you are in control, and that that becomes contagious.
Absolutely, Mike. I couldn't agree with you more. That you're right. And we've been around long enough. We've all been around longer than 20 minutes, so we've heard both. We've heard that consummate professional, and we've heard the screamers, and not just at the company officer level, but at the chief level too. Yeah. You know,
I've stolen this from my friend Mr. West, because I'm pretty sure he stole it from somewhere else. But you know, when asked to what command presence is, it's a lot like pornography. You really can't define it, but you know it when you see it.
Perfect.
Yep.
That's a good way to describe it. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You know, I delivered something recently. I was in Jersey last week. They had their annual Homeland Security conference, and I did something on leadership for them. They had me batting cleanup before going home time. But one of the things that I talk about, there was a study done, and it was called the green and the blue, and it was the LAPD and the Army, and these guys did a study on a parallel, like what for leadership purposes and what they do, and one of the things that they said was use your loud voice judiciously, use anger judiciously. And when I said that, they all looked, and I had to slide up on the thing, and I said, if you run around screaming every single day, when you have to make a point, when there's a danger, when there's something's going to happen bad, and you scream into your radio, they're not going to hear you. So if you're level-headed and you're calm and you're good and you're regular, and then all of a sudden you say, "Hey, blah blah blah," I said, everybody's going to pay attention, because like, wow, the guy's always so calm. What's going on here? You know? So it's like, use your anger judiciously. It really a good tip. And amongst the other stuff that they did with the study was pretty cool. But I agree when you talk about that presence, about tone and all that. When I was the chief at Merck in New Jersey at the chemical plant, I found the fire when I was driving around in the facility, and we had an outdoor fire. And I picked up the radio, call one to Central. Go ahead, tap out the fire department and the city of Linden. We got a fire behind building number, whatever the building number was, building 92. We got a working fire, flammable liquids, blah blah blah. And sure enough, they tapped the guys out, and my guys have responded with the foam truck, and Linden's coming in, and blah blah. And after the fire, we go back to the firehouse. And 3 guys come running up to me saying, "Chief, you were like so calm on the radio. You were so calm on the radio." Like they didn't understand. I said, if I picked up the handset and said, "Send everybody, the world's coming to an end," I said, that would have set the tone for everything.
Exactly.
I said, yeah, and of course, we all used for a long time. We all used that case study of the TWA pilot on the Sioux City, Iowa crash. How calm that guy was, and interestingly enough, there's a series on Smithsonian Channel called Air Disasters, and it's all about air crashes and the NTSB investigations. It's very interesting, a little sad at the same time, I got to tell you. But I just watched the Sioux City, Iowa crash, the whole investigation and the whole bit. And we heard some of those tapes on television recently, and I recognized it right away. I said to my wife, "This happened in Sioux City, Iowa." She said, "How do you know?" I said, "It's a case study, but that pilot, he was talking to the tower like they were meeting for coffee in 15 minutes. But especially as the incident commander or as the boss, and show the first lieutenant or captain, they're the boss when they get there until somebody else shows up. You gotta maintain, and you gotta keep your head, even if the world is coming to an end, because that's going to set the tone for the whole operation right there."
I know Ron has listened to it, and I have the initial dispatch and response to the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse, and I got to give Baltimore County credit. The first guy on the scene was smooth as silk.
Yep.
And if you haven't had a chance to listen to that, it's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, it was. So there is something to be said for all of that.
There's one that's in no one's slide tray.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. No kidding. Tommy, you have anything further on formal questions for the boss over here? Because I got a couple.
No, you had a question or two for him, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, we're bouncing back and forth. Yeah, I got a couple of things I pulled off the net. I just want to throw at both of you guys and get a reaction out of you. This punched me in the face when I saw this. Two New York firefighters from New York State, different departments, upstate New York, were killed in a farm accident this week. It was a confined space accident. Now, OSHA 1910-146 is 30 years old. It's 30 years since 146 with confined spaces. One guy went in to get a piece of equipment where, I don't know if it was a trench or was an underground manhole or whatever. And then the second guy came up. He jumped right down in the hole. They died together. This is 30 years later. And now, listen, I'm not making fun of two dead firefighters. I would never, ever do that. But we learned a lot of hard lessons when confined spaces. That's why they wrote 146, because the cops and the firemen were getting killed going in on rescues. And they come up with this whole procedure about going into confined spaces. We lost two firefighters this week in a confined space. So it's a lesson learned. That's why I bring it up. I don't know what your reaction is, but
it boils back down to the basic complacency kills, and you get in that mindset that I know the standards out there, but it's never going to happen here. And between not following procedures and maybe getting into the little not understanding the risk benefit, training has got to be the key to that, Ron.
Yeah, I guess so. I think the first guy was working, and he went in to get a tool. Wherever I don't remember the crux of the story, but he dropped a piece of equipment or a tool, so he went down further into the hole, the trench, whatever it was, and he succumbed. And then the second guy came along, or he was with him, and he looked down, and so it's a caution to everybody. Listen, there's this confined space, this 146 program. It's there for a reason. You have to be vigilant. Don't let your guard down, because these guys, they never expected that would happen, and their families didn't expect it either. So learn that lesson from these two. It's been a while since we lost a firefighter in a confined space because of 146. Because we're following rules, and we're putting on harnesses and air and going down a tripod or whatever else we're using to do it, as all part of technical rescue. But we lost two guys this week to that, so I bring it up so it's a lesson learned for the folks that are watching. Here's another lesson learned. An upstate career lieutenant, also New York. I could live in a hopping joint here, he was arrested by the FBI for moving child pornography around, and so. We talk about reputation management. We discuss that now and then, and with the reputation of the fire service, and this it's a big black eye on the entire fire service when people do that. So, and Tommy, you and I have been talking about this stuff as long as we've been on the air together. We've had there's been deputy chiefs having sex with junior firefighters in the back of their car. We had that one. What I mean? There was just. Every once in a while, our people do so. And now I know we're human beings, and we get sidetracked and we get off and off the track. But the fire. Listen, people hold us to a higher standard, just like the cops. There's nothing worse than a cop committing a crime, because what does society do? You should have known better. You're a police officer, right? So they hold us in esteem. So when I see that, it kind of flips me inside out. That's something that's controllable. The guy sending around pictures. On a fire department computer, what are you doing, pal?
The Cumberland boys put together that reputation management white paper, and that should be, again, fed into basic training for any fire department. Reputation management is critical, especially if you're in a volunteer department relying on community support. Sure. There's nothing that'll violate that trust quicker than that.
No doubt. No doubt.
I just want to, you guys enjoy reading as I do. I really recommend a brand new book, just came out this week. I'm just about done with it. It's called Right Thing, Right Now. Right Thing, Right Now. It's by Ryan Holiday. So for those little listeners that are into Stoic philosophy and some of the stuff, if they follow the Daily Stoic with Ryan Holiday, it's his newest book. But it's a lot about just doing the right thing all the time.
Oh, cool.
And it's got some great stories from ancient history as well as more recent history as well. And I think it's worth a read.
It sounds good. Yeah, Tommy and I are big on the book thing. We always like to pass on the books, so we appreciate that. Thanks, Mike. I saw something funny today, by the way, on firehouse.com. The headline of an article. You ready? Fire at the Las Vegas boat harbor. If you don't believe me, go on and look. It's there. Fire at the Las Vegas boat harbor. I said, "What are they skiing on the sand? I mean, what are they doing out there, you know?" But it turns out, as I read the article, it was on Lake Mead, so I get it. It said fire at the Las Vegas boat harbor. I thought that was hysterical. You know, it's as it is the Las Vegas hockey team. They drowned in spring training last year. You know, it was terrible. But the ice hockey team is gone. But what can I tell you, man? You never know. You never know. Oh God. Okay, so I think we're gonna go to the lightning round. What do you think?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. So my good friend Mike Cologne, he does a podcast called Mic'd Up in New Haven, and he does a lot of fire. He's a volunteer firefighter, but he interviews a lot of police and firefighters. I had the honor of being on the show with Mike a couple of weeks ago. He interviewed me. He does what he calls the best of the bravest, that he interviews fire people from all over the country. And then he has just the FDNY guys as like a separate volume. And then he does the police and the rescue cops and all that stuff. So he does something at the end of the show called Lightning Round. So we're going to do it with you, West. Okay. This is you now. You ready? Okay. Favorite firehouse meal?
A meal called Firehouse Favorite. It's noodles and sausage and cheese and deliciousness all rolled up into one big casserole.
Okay. Your favorite meal when you eat out? What do you like to go out and eat? What's your favorite thing to eat outside?
It's Italian. It's Italian every single time.
I can't say that. My wife's Italian. If she knew I was going out to get Italian food, it's over. Okay. The best fire service book you ever read? Fire service book.
Port from Engine Company 82.
Hang on.
God rest his soul.
Now the pages are yellow. I don't know if you can see that, but the pages. This is an original copy, and hold on. It was $1.50. It says it right up here in the corner. I don't know if you can see that.
Wow, $1.50.
It's my original first thing I ever read. Dynamite, Mike, you're the man. I love you. All right, best book you ever read on leadership book.
Oh, best leadership book. That's you get me because I feel like I read another one every single day. But honestly, I'm going to stick with a Stoic philosophy right now. It is Marcus Aurelius's Meditations.
Wow.
It is the most powerful man in the entire planet in his day was writing how to be a more humble and a better leader.
Interesting. Very good. In a large city, because I know you've been to many. You're a Jersey guy. You're being Colorado, so it's Denver. And anywhere you traveled, if you got like a favorite restaurant, like if it's in Chicago, you'd fly there once a week to go to that restaurant.
It's Indianapolis, St. Elmo's.
You're the man. You're the man. Great answer. Okay. Item last. You ready? If you could go back and speak to young Mike West, what would you tell you? What advice would you give to you as a young guy, knowing what you know now?
Lighten up and enjoy the ride.
Lighten up and enjoy the ride. Outstanding. That's dynamite. Mike, we can't thank you enough for being on the Backstep with us tonight. It's always a treat talking to you. And yes, Tommy said you're in the top 3 or top 5 instructors in the country. I think you are too. I've sat in on some of your stuff at FDIC. What a great treat to have you here. And it sounds like Front Range Fire and Rescue is great. I see you guys all over LinkedIn, and you're hiring and you're doing all kinds of stuff, and that sounds like a great deal. So thanks for being with us tonight. Tom, you want to add a couple of things here?
I was going to do the roll.
You want
And
to do them all?
I
Okay.
spoken to you earlier. And
Yes.
how long have we been doing this show now? 10 years?
About 12 years. About 12 years already.
This is a first. And I'm kind of flabbergasted, but I'm hoping that the direction continues. We were last on the air on May 14th, and between May 14th and today, there has only been one line of duty death.
Wow.
Usually, we're doing anywhere between 5 to 10, and I hope to see this as a trend that will continue. But Kenneth Caldwell from La Crosse, Indiana, made the supreme sacrifice on June 6th and suffered a heart attack after a call. And that's it. That's off the U.S. Fire Administration's website.
Yeah.
And we need to keep his family in our thoughts and prayers. And again, try to learn the lessons that he has left behind.
So this is truly a first, Mike. For your benefit and for anybody watching, Tommy does the role of our line of duties, show to show, and it's a 10 or 15 minute gig every time, and this was a 10-second gig, man. So that's a good thing to see. That's of course, not for Ken's family, because any firefighter we lose is a bad thing, but it wasn't 5 or 10 or 12 or whatever. We've had some horrendous periods of time from show to show. So this was maybe this will set the tone. Who knows? We'll see. But thanks again, Mike. Tommy, as always, don't forget, guys, stop for red, use your head, eat right, eat light, work out, exercise, wear your seatbelt, wear your hood, wear your mask. The mask costs the chief 10 grand a pop. You better put it on your face. Okay. And don't forget to hug your wife and kids, hug them tight when you say goodnight. So with that, we're going to sign off the air. Guys, you stick around, even though we're going to go off the air. We need to speak afterwards, and take care, everybody. Be safe.
Stay safe, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Like a trusted turnout jacket you've had for years, Flex 7 outer shell fabric delivers a perfectly broken-in feel on the very first wear. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology, Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tenkatafabrics.com/flex7. Flex 7, powered by enforced technology, only from Tenkata Protective Fabrics.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit magnagrip.com.